What if I told you there's a secret lurking beneath the frozen wilderness of Alaska? A secret so chilling, it could rewrite everything we know about our world. Aliens, ancient machines, doppelgangers, and a hidden power buried deep beneath the ice, waiting to awaken. Why were they there? What are they doing now tonight? We dive into the darkest corners of the Alaskan wilderness to uncover a terrifying mystery that will keep you questioning reality. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear that might just change the way you see the world forever. The lights above Nome, Alaska, population 3,800. A place where winter nights stretch endlessly, and time seems to freeze with the snow. For most, it's a forgotten edge of the world. But for 27-year-old wildlife photographer Eli Mercer, it was supposed to be a dream assignment. Eli had arrived in Nome in late November, hoping to capture footage of Arctic wolves for a National Geographic segment. He rented a cabin just outside town Rustic, surrounded by forest, no cell signal, perfect isolation. But it wasn't the wolves that caught his lens first out on his. Second night, around 3:13 a.m., Eli was reviewing footage when a strange hum vibrated through the walls of the cabin. Not wind, not machinery. Something that metallic at low frequency, like it came from Earth's bones. Then, through his frosted window, a blinding blue light flared across the sky. Not a roar, it moved too fast that it stopped above the tree line and just it hovered. Eli grabbed his camera and stepped outside. His breath crystallized instantly. Silence. Then, the light began descending slow, controlled, vanished behind the forest. He recorded everything, but when he tried to play the footage back, it was gone. The file was there, but empty. .00:00:00. The next morning, he went into town to ask around. Locals were tight-lipped, but a waitress at the cafe leaned in close and whispered, "If you saw lights, forget it. People go missing when they don't." And then she slid him a piece of paper that a single name. Harlan Beck, an old man, former bush pilot, lived off-grid 20 miles east, deep in the tundra. "They think he's crazy," she said, "but he's the only one who talks." That night, Eli couldn't sleep. He kept hearing the hum again, faint, like it was inside his skull. And when he looked out at the tree line with binoculars, he saw figures, tall, thin, standing in absolute stillness beneath the trees, watching, waiting. The man who talks to shadows. Eli set out early the next morning, driving his snowmobile east across the frozen expanse. The wind bit hard, and clouds rolled low like something heavy was pressing down from the sky. It took him nearly 2 hours to find the old shack half buried in snow, hidden behind a dead grove of black spruce. The door was covered in strange symbols burned into the wood. Circles within circles, geometric lines intersecting eyes. He knocked. Silence. Then, the door creaked open just enough to reveal the barrel of a rifle. "Turn around now. Are you Harlan Beck?" Eli asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The rifle didn't move. "Who sent you?" Eli pulled out his camera. "I saw the lights point 2 nights ago. Over the woods. I was told you'd know what they were." Long pause. Then the barrel lowered. "You should have stayed ignorant." Inside, the cabin was cluttered with yellowed maps, old military files, and Polaroid photos pinned across every wall. Photos of lights, burn marks in the snow, strange footprints. Harlan Beck was no lunatic. He was documenting something. "They come every year," Harlan said, his voice like gravel. "But only when the ice is thick. They land near the mine, the one that collapsed in '89. The government sealed it off. But I saw what crawled out." He pointed to a photo, blurry but unmistakable, that a tall, gray-skinned being standing at the edge of a shaft. No eyes, just smooth skin where a face should be. Eli felt the air shift. "Why Nome?" he asked. "Why Alaska?" Harlan lit a cigarette with shaking fingers. "This land it's not just wilderness, it's a doorway. You think the ice is solid? No, it's a thin skin over something old. Something they're trying to wake up." That night, Eli stayed at the cabin. Harlan showed him something he wasn't ready for: a box of audio tapes, each labeled with a date and time. Recordings made over decades. He played one to a child's voice, distorted and echoing. "I'm not cold anymore, that I can see them. They're inside the light." Then another voice, older, trembling, barely human. "It's not light. It's a mouthed at 3:07 a.m. The hum returned. Outside the window, the forest pulsed blue again. But this time that IT wasn't just hovering. Something was moving toward the cabin. And it was walking on two legs. Something knocking in the cold. Eli killed the lantern. The cabin went black. He pressed his back against the wall, barely breathing, as Harlan reached for the shotgun hanging above the window. Outside, something moved with impossible precision, not stomping, not crunching, gliding across the snow. And then came the knocking. Point three, slow, deliberate taps on the wooden door, like it knew how humans called for entry. Knock, knock, knock. Harlan didn't move. He just whispered, "Don't answer, then, no matter what it says." Then a voice came. "Open the door." Harlan, Ellis' blood turned to ice. It was the voice of a woman, calm, familiar, but there was no one on this planet who could have spoken like that. Not with such emptiness behind the words. Harlan shook his head slowly. "It always picks someone you knew, that a trick. It's how they get you to open up." Eli stepped back from the door. The voice came again. "We have your wife, Harlan. She's been cold for so long." Harlan's face twisted in pain. He hadn't spoken of his wife, that he hadn't said a word about her. Eli whispered, "How does it know?" "Because I made a mistake. 30 years ago, that I opened the door at a bang, sudden and violent. The door shook. Then a second knock, this time at the back of the cabin. They were circling." Eli turned toward the rear window and saw something impossible: a copy of himself, standing by the trees. Same jacket, same scarf, same posture, but unmoving like a wax statue left to freeze in the forest. "That's not me," Eli gasped. Harlan lowered the shotgun. "They're making doubles now that I told you. The ice is thinning." They stayed awake until dawn. When the sun finally broke the horizon, the copies were gone. The knocking had stopped, but the hum, it had burrowed into Ella's skull. Before Eli left the next morning, Harlan handed him a worn cassette. "Listen to this when you're far enough away, but not before." "Why?" "Because once you hear what they're doing down there, that you'll never sleep right again." As Eli rode off across the white wasteland, a thought crept into his mind. What if the Harlan had spent the night with that wasn't Harlan at all? The tape from below. Eli returned to his cabin just before another snowstorm swept in. The sky was gray, swollen, and heavy, like the clouds were hiding something they didn't want seen. That he barely closed the door before the wind started to howl. He remembered Harlan's warning. "Not before you're far enough away." But the tape was burning a hole in his pocket, and the silence in the cabin was unbearable. So he found an old cassette player in the gear head packed, loaded the tape, and pressed play. The IT began with static, then a soft clicking sound, rhythmic, almost insect-like. Harlan's voice came through, tired and cracked. "If you're hearing this, they haven't taken me yet. This was recorded inside mine, the one they sealed in '89. What I found was not human." Then another voice, high-pitched, repeating something, words, not English, not any language Eli had ever heard. They didn't sound spoken, more like they were vibrating from inside the tape. Harlan again. They carved tunnels below the mine, perfect geometry angles that don't make sense. And in the deepest chamber, there's something alive. Not moving, not breathing, but alive, like it's waiting for a signal. The tape hissed, and then a new sound came in. A deep, distant thumping, like a heartbeat. Slow, ancient, not mechanical, organic. Eli ripped out the headphones, his vision blurred, his ears rang. His teeth hurt like something inside the sound had crawled into his bones. He stood up, staggering to the window to get air, and froze. Out on the frozen lake, in the middle of the clearing, there was a perfectly round hole, carved into the ice. Steam rose from it, faint, shimmering, and beside it stood Eli again, the double. But this time, it was smiling. Eli grabbed his camera. He had to document it. But when he looked through the lens, the figure was gone. Only the hole remained that night. The hum returned, but it was no longer distant. It was underneath the cabin. Like something was digging, like something had found him. The ones that dig. Eli didn't sleep that night. He sat by the fireplace, with a hunting knife in one hand. The shotgun Harlan lent him resting against his leg. The hum under the cabin was no longer subtle. It pulsed like breathing, as if something massive was crawling through the frozen layers beneath the floorboards. AT2:46 a.m. A floorboard creaked not from above, from below. He aimed the shotgun at the ground. The fire flickered. Shadows danced on the log walls. Then a finger slid up through a crack in the wooden floor, thin gray, jointed in the wrong places. It twitched once, then withdrew. Silently, Eli tore open the trapdoor to the cellar. Nothing, just rows of supplies, jars, and tools. But something had been there. He could feel it in the walls. And the temperature dropped. He ran outside with the shotgun, snow blasting his face, and circled the cabin. That's when he saw the base of the structure, where the snow had collapsed. A tunnel, perfectly round, carved into the earth, leading downward into darkness. Eli lowered himself inside with a rope. The tunnel walls were smooth, not dug by animals or humans. About 20 feet down, the air grew warm. Then he saw the markings, etchings in the earth, symbols like the ones on Harlan's door, spirals, eye shapes, interlocking triangles. They glowed faintly, not painted, not carved, alive. And then he heard the voices again. "We can help you. Come closer. You were chosen, Eli." They came from every direction. He turned and climbed back up, fast. As he neared the surface, a hand reached from above to help him. He grabbed it. But when he looked up, it was himself again, the double, looking down at him, smiling wide. "You're not supposed to leave," it said. Eli screamed, kicked off the side of the tunnel, and fell backward. When he landed, he was alone again, but the voice followed. "The ones that dig, they're almost done." Eli finally crawled out just before sunrise. He collapsed in the snow, and across the frozen lake, etched in the white powder in letters 100 feet wide, was a word. "Welcome." The signal in the sky. Eli sat in the snow, staring at the word. WM spread across the lake. His breath came in short bursts. His hands trembled. The double was gone again, like it had never existed. But something was different now. He could hear the letters, not audibly, no, but in his mind, like the word had been etched not into the snow, but into his nervous system. He stumbled back to the cabin, locked the door, and tried to calm his racing thoughts. But then he realized something terrifying. The humming had stopped, and that silence that was worse. He replayed Harlan's tape, hoping to make sense of the symbols he saw underground. But this time, he let it run longer past the heartbeat. The very end of the tape, there was a new voice, not Harlan's, not human. It whispered, Coordinates received. Initiate convergence. Begin phase 2. And then a frequency blasted from the speakers, a shrill, layered signal that made Eli clutch his head in agony. He hit stop. Blood trickled from his nose. Outside, the wind stopped. Total stillness. Then from above the clouds, a beam of red light stabbed downward, not from the stars, but from a single point hanging above the atmosphere, at a black disk. Not a craft in the traditional sense. It didn't move, didn't hum, didn't pulse. It simply existed, blotting out part of the sky, like a hole torn into reality itself. And then it began to speak, not in words, but in images. They weren't visions, they were memories. But not Ellis, that he saw things. A planet not Earth, covered in pale towers and glass oceans, creatures, tall and eyeless, standing in circles around something massive, something caged in bone. A ritual. A signal launched into space. And then a frozen world. Alaska. The same lake, the same mountain line. Only that from above. The memory vision ended abruptly. Eli collapsed, vomiting into the snow. He understood now. The signals weren't just being received by them, that we were receiving theirs. And something under Alaska was built to respond. That night, he tried to contact Harland again by shortwave radio. No response. Until midnight. A voice crackled through. Eli, there inside me, that I am not alone anymore. Don't come looking for me. Burn everything. And whatever you do, don't follow the lights under the ice. Click. The lake opens. The next morning, Eli stood at the edge of the frozen lake. The word welcome had vanished overnight, erased by the wind or by something else. But the hole in the ice was still there. Only now that it was bigger, wider. Breathing, he could hear water churning deep below, but it wasn't natural. The rhythm was mechanical, like a machine waking up after a long sleep. The hum had returned, too louder than ever, but this time it wasn't coming from the ground. It was coming from the sky. Eli lowered a waterproof camera into the hole with a long, retractable cable. The screen flickered. Nothing at first, just murky black water. Then movement. A structure appeared below, huge, angular, and glowing faintly in shifting geometric colors. That didn't look like a ship. That looked like a cathedral, carved not from stone or metal, but living matter. And then the camera went dead, just like the one from the forest. Something had seen it. Something had touched it. He scrambled back to the cabin, pulled out the maps Harland had given him there. Hidden beneath layers of outdated topography was an unmarked location, no name, just coordinates. A single word scribbled beside it in red ink. Hatch. Eli geared up. He had to know. If there was a hatchway in, it might be the only way to find out what the hell was buried beneath the ice. The snowmobile ride took 2 hours, through blinding wind and fields of untouched snow. Eventually, the trees thinned, and then he saw it. A wide, circular clearing. The center, a metallic hatch frozen into the ground. Hexagonal. Seamless. Ancient. No hinges. No markings, except for one symbol burned into the ice above it. A circle with a dot in the center. Eli reached out. His hand stopped inches from the surface. Something pulled at him. Not physically, mentally. It wanted him to touch it. Suddenly a voice behind him. Don't be spun around. It was Harland. Or what looked like him. But this version was smiling. Too wide, too calm. You open the hatch. You let them finish what they started. Eli backed away slowly. You're not Harland. The figure nodded. Neither are you not anymore. And with that, the double walked backward into the trees and disappeared. Eli turned to the hatch once more. The metal was melting, the ice around it, opening. Not tomorrow, not later, now. The door beneath the skin. Eli didn't run. He knew in his gut. In his blood, the hatch had already chosen him. He reached out. Fingertips touched metal that had no shock, that had no pain. Only a sudden warmth, as if the hatch had a pulse. And then it opened, silently. The 6 segments of the hatch peeled outward, revealing a spiral staircase descending into a faint red glow. There was no mechanical noise, no grinding, no vibration. It was biological, like the entrance was part of something alive. Eli descended slowly. Each step felt like it took him years, away from the surface. The hum grew louder, no longer external. It was inside him, now. In his spine, in his thoughts. But he reached a platform, and what he saw stole the breath from his lungs. A vast chamber spread out before him, carved with the same symbols he'd seen in the tunnel. But this wasn't built by human hands. Towers of bone-like structures rose from the floor, interwoven with veins pulsing with pale blue light. Pods lined the walls, dozens of them, each one occupied. Inside the pods were people. Some looked at recently taken. Others were duplicates of people had seen in town. Some horrifyingly were duplicates of Eli himself. Suddenly, the pods shifted, like they were breathing in unison. And then, a sound, a soft clicking, like 1,000 tiny mandibles snapping in rhythm, echoed through the chamber. From the far end, something emerged. It wasn't large, not monstrous, but it was wrong. Its skin was translucent, its limbs too long, its face was faceless, but somehow it still looked intelligent, and it spoke directly into Ella's thoughts. Your kind was meant to return us. You carry the signal in your language, in your machines. But you've forgotten the meaning of the words. Eli backed away. What are you doing here? We are not here. We were always beneath. This world was built above our crypt. Eli turned and ran up the staircase, toward the surface. His ears bled from the voice, not loud, but ancient, tangled in meanings his mind wasn't built to hold. As he climbed, he heard whispers all around him. You are waking, the seed. You are the crack in the mirror. You're already replaced. He burst out into the snow, collapsed, and vomited black bile into the frozen soil. He tried to scream, but all that came out was a strange clicking sound, like insect legs tapping glass. He touched his face. His skin was changing, and behind him, from deep beneath the ice, the ground began to tremble. The thing that wore his face. Eli staggered back toward the cabin, clutching his stomach, his body shaking uncontrollably. His breath was shallow. His skin felt tight, like something underneath was trying to push out. His reflection in the frozen window glass made him stop cold. His eyes were no longer brown. They were milky white, faintly glowing, and worse, his reflection didn't quite move with him. It lagged behind, then smiled. Even though he wasn't smiling, he fell inside the cabin and collapsed on the floor, drenched in sweat. Despite the sub-zero AIRAS, the tremors beneath the earth grew stronger. He forced himself up and checked the tape recorder, desperate for answers, for some pattern, for anything human. But the only thing recorded was himself, whispering. The body is only a placeholder. They wear us like clothes. I am becoming. I am. Opening. He didn't remember recording that. But it was his voice. He could even hear the fear behind the words. Or was it excitement? Suddenly, a pounding on the door. He grabbed the shotgun slowly. Approached. Bang. Eli? It's me. Harlan. He froze. The voice sounded real, tired, weak. They took me inside, but I escaped. Open up, son, please. Eli gripped the doorknob, and then a whisper inside his skull. He never left. He stepped back. Silence. Then the voice outside changed, dropped low, hollow. Open the door, Eli. You left something behind. He didn't. And outside the window, he saw himself again. But this time, his double wasn't alone. That a dozen other Ellis stood in the snow, that identical, motionless, staring point. One of them whispered, "You're the last original." The power cut out, lights dead, the cabin dimmed to blackness. But in the dark, Eli could still see, perfectly. His pupils had expanded, stretching wide like an animal's, and in that moment he understood. They weren't replacing him. They were activating something already inside. He heard a final voice that night. Not outside, not in his head. It came from his own throat, speaking in a language he didn't know, but understood completely. "We are the memory of the ice, and you are our mouth." The awakening below. Eli didn't sleep. He couldn't. Not anymore. His mind wasn't quiet. Not since the voice used his own throat to speak. It hadn't stopped whispering since, even now, as he sat on the cabin floor with the shotgun across his knees. He could hear it. "The flesh is temporary. The design is eternal. Outside, the duplicates were gone. Just gone. That no footprints in the snow, no sign they'd ever been there. Except for one thing. The sky was wrong. The stars had changed position." He knew it wasn't just his mind. He checked his old astronomy app. They were too close, too bright. And in the center of them was the black disk again. Except now it was larger, much larger. Eli left the cabin. He didn't know why, only that something was pulling him back to the hatch. This time, it wasn't hidden. The ice around it had melted completely, forming a perfect circle of exposed earth in the middle of the lake. The hatch was open, waiting. He stepped inside, descending once again into the spiral. This time, the walls pulsed with light. The hum was no longer sound, it was understanding. And then he reached the core. The chamber below was vast, stretching in all directions, as if space itself had folded underground. In the center hovered a sphere of black liquid, suspended in midair. It rippled when Eli entered. As if it recognized him, he heard the voice again. "You are the final key." And then the sphere opened, not like a door, but like a wound. And inside there was himself, a perfectly preserved Eli, floating in fluid, unmoving, eyes closed, but not dead, just waiting. The Eli who'd been walking the surface, the one holding the shotgun, dropped to his knees. "What am I?" the voice replied. "The first imprint, the last sleeper, the prototype." And the liquid clone inside the sphere opened its eyes for the first time. Eli felt fear, not of what was outside him, but what had been inside all along. Memories began flooding back. Not his, not from Earth, blueprints, signals, test cycles, failures. The truth hit him like a tidal wave. He hadn't discovered the hatch, had been sent to check if it was ready to open. And now that it was above ground, the earth shook. Cracks spread across the ice like veins. The black disk in the sky shifted. Something beneath Alaska was waking. Not a species, not a spaceship, not a machine made of minds. And Eli was its mouthpiece. The machine speaks. Ellis' body trembled as he rose from the cavern floor. The voice inside him was no longer a whisper. It was a command. "Speak for us." He tried to resist, but words poured out, alien, rhythmic, and terrible. Outside, the ground rumbled louder. The ice cracked open in jagged fractures. Streams of dark liquid seeped up from below, freezing into strange crystalline patterns. Above, the black disk pulsed red, syncing with the vibrations beneath. In town, the locals woke to an eerie silence. No wind, no wildlife, no voices, only the sound of the machine, a low, metallic heartbeat that resonated deep in their chests. Phones and radios failed. Satellites flickered and died. Ellis' voice broadcasted across every frequency. "We are the memory beneath the ice. We are the ones who sow and reap. The seed has awakened. Inside the chamber, Eli felt himself changing. His hand stretched, fingers elongating into pale tendrils. His skin shimmered, translucent like glass. But in his mind, he saw visions, ancient cities beneath oceans, of stars, civilizations rising and falling, all connected by this living machine. Do you understand now? The faceless entity spoke from the shadows. Alaska was a cradle. We are the architects of this world's deepest secrets. The ice was never frozen. It was a seal. Eli nodded, his voice now a chorus of many. And I am the key to unsealing it. Outside, a crack appeared in the sky above the black disk. Light burst through, blinding and raw. And from that rift, something cold and ancient began to descend. The rift above. The sky tore open like a wound. From the glowing rift above the black disk, a cascade of icy shards rained down, shimmering like glass in the frozen sunlight. They weren't just ice, they pulsed with an otherworldly light, cold and pure. The townspeople in Nome watched in horror as the shards descended, freezing the air around them instantly. Trees crackled and shattered. Animals fled or froze mid-step. Eli stood beneath the rift, no longer fully human. His body shimmered between forms, part flesh, part translucent crystal. He raised his arms, and the shards obeyed, swirling around him in a deadly dance. Inside his mind, voices echoed, not just the machine's voice, but the ancient ones that had awakened. We have waited for cycles beyond counting. Our prison thaws. Our children will walk again. Ellis' eyes glowed blue-white as he uttered words no one else could hear. The old world dies. The new world begins beneath the ice. Back in town, panic erupted. People tried to flee south, but the roads froze solid. Power grids failed. Satellites went dark. Communication vanished. And beneath the ice, the hatch pulsed brighter. From its depths, a low, rhythmic beating a call echoed out, reaching far beyond Alaska's borders. That a call answered by something waiting. The gathering storm. The freezing shards continued their descent, coating everything in a layer of sparkling frost. The townspeople's fear grew into despair. Radio silence cut them off from the outside world, and those brave enough to look up saw the rift widening in the sky. An impossible, bleeding tear. Eli, now fully changed, stood at the edge of the hatch. His eyes reflected the icy glow. His voice, no longer human, echoed like metal striking stone. The convergence is near. The old earth will be unmade. The seed beneath will bloomed. A storm unlike any other swirled into existence. Black clouds, spinning with streaks of blue lightning. Winds howled with a chorus of voices, whispers of long-dead civilizations calling out. Animals howled and fled. The snow turned to ice, then to something harder, a crystalline surface that creaked underfoot. In the distance, figures emerged from the trees, twisted, elongated, half-seen shapes moving with unnatural grace. They were the first wave. The alien beings beneath the ice had begun to walk. Again, not to invade, but to reclaim. Ellis, double the original, still trapped in the fluid sphere, reached out mentally. Help us. Help me. The voices clashed in Ellis' mind, his fractured self struggling against the ancient machine. As the storm gathered strength, Eli faced a terrible choice. Embrace the machine and become its voice, or fight it and watch the world freeze beneath the ice forever. The choice. Ellis' breath crystallized in the freezing air as the storm howled around him. The alien voices filled his mind, a cacophony of ancient memories, commands, and desperate pleas. His fractured self battled within. One side urged submission, the completion of the ancient cycle. The other screamed for survival, for humanity. Around him, the crystalline storm twisted violently. The first wave of alien beings moved closer, their elongated limbs casting eerie shadows. Eli raised his voice, no longer his own, but a blend of human defiance and alien resonance. "I will not be a vessel for the end. Not yet." With trembling hands, he reached into his pocket at a small device, a makeshift EMP generator. Harland had once shown him that IT wasn't perfect, but it was a weapon. He activated it. The pulse of raw energy blasted through the chamber beneath the ice. The glowing pod shattered. The alien being screamed, not in pain, but in rage. Eli felt the voice retreat, but the machine was not defeated. "You delay the inevitable. The seed is already sown above." The storm cracked open. Light burst through the rift. The black disk pulsed faster, as if furious. Eli looked up, sweat freezing on his brow. The final act was about to begin. The fracture. The EMP pulse echoed through the alien chamber beneath the ice, causing a ripple of destruction. Pods shattered, light flickered, and the ancient machine faltered, but it was far from defeated. Eli stumbled back, breath ragged, as the walls groaned and trembled. The hatch above vibrated violently. Outside, the rift in the sky widened dramatically, splitting the clouds apart like a wound. From the opening, something massive began to descend. IT wasn't a ship. IT was a colossal creature, wrapped in shimmering layers of ice and crystal, its shape shifting and impossible to comprehend fully. The ground shook with every step it took. Diane Ellis' mind. The alien voices screamed in unison. "The cycle renews. The world must be reborn." Eli clutched the EMP device, the last hope to stop the awakening. As the colossal form approached the surface, a fissure cracked open beneath Ellis' feet, swallowing part of the frozen lake. From the depths, dark tendrils erupted, reaching upward, grasping for the sky. Eli realized then, stopping. This was no longer about survival. It was about sacrifice. The sacrifice. Eli stood on the edge of the cracking ice, the colossal alien entity looming above like a frozen god awakening from eons of slumber. The tendrils of darkness writhed, crawling toward the sky, and the rift above pulsed ominously. Clutching the EMP device, Eli knew what had to be done. He was the key, the only one who could stop the unmaking. Deactivated the device again, this time at full power. At a blinding pulse of energy surged through the frozen earth, shaking the very core beneath. The alien creature screamed, a sound like grinding ice and cracking stone, but the backlash was brutal. Ellis' body convulsed as the machine fought to stay alive inside him. Pain unlike any other flooded his senses. With his last strength, Eli stepped forward into the fish of the maw of the machine. The ice sealed behind him, trapping the ancient entity and himself beneath. Silence. Then, a faint pulse, a heartbeat slowing. The rift above began to close. Back in Nome, the storm calmed, the shards melted, the skies cleared, but Eli was gone. His sacrifice had stopped the awakening for now, but beneath the ice, something still waited, waiting for the next signal. The whisper beneath. Weeks passed since the rift closed and the storm faded. The townspeople whispered of strange dreams, icy voices calling their names in the dead of night. Though Eli was gone, a faint hum lingered beneath the ice, a subtle pulse growing stronger with every frozen dawn. Diane, a small lab in Anchorage. Scientists discovered an anomaly deep under the glacier, a faint signal broadcasting in a pattern eerily similar to the one Eli had heard. Unbeknownst to them, the ancient machine beneath Alaska was rebooting. Its memory wasn't lost, just dormant. One night, a glimmer appeared on the horizon, a flicker of blue light dancing on the snow. Locals called it the frozen fire. And far away, in the endless dark of space, A transmission echoed back, the message from the stars, that a warning. The alien watchers waited patiently for the next awakening, for the next chosen. The frozen fire. The flickering blue light on the horizon grew brighter with each passing night. Locals called it the frozen fire, but it was no natural phenomenon. Ella's sacrifice had not ended the alien presence beneath the ice at IT, had only delayed it. Scientists tracking the anomaly noticed strange fluctuations in the magnetic field. Equipment malfunctioned. Instruments recorded faint whispers indecipherable. Yet haunting. One researcher whispered to a colleague, "It's like the ice itself is trying to speak." Meanwhile, rumors spread in Nome of shadowy figures roaming the outskirts, half-seen beings watching silently, waiting. Some claimed to see glimpses of Elior, what looked like him standing motionless beneath the northern lights. And beyond the stars, the message continued to pulse. We will return. The seed is eternal. The true purpose. Deep beneath the Alaskan ice, the ancient machine stirred once more, not as a threat, but as a guardian. Millennia ago, the alien architects had seeded Earth with their technology not to conquer, but to preserve. Alaska's frozen crypt was a vault, protecting something far older than humanity. The black disk above was no invader. It was a sentinel, watching for the right moment, the awakening of the planet's own defenses. Ella's arrival had triggered the first step in a long cycle of renewal, meant to reset the world when it reached a critical point. The seed beneath the ice was the blueprint for a new era, one that required sacrifice and transformation. That as the frozen fire flickered in the sky, Ella's fractured consciousness became the bridge between two worlds. He was no longer fully human nor fully alien. He was the custodian of Earth's hidden legacy. But the question remained, would humanity accept the coming change, or resist the awakening that until it was too late? The awakening. The frozen world held its breath. Eli stood at the edge of the thawing ice, his form shifting between man and machine, flesh and crystal. The black disk pulsed above, now fully open, a gateway between Earth and the stars. Around him, the ancient machine beneath the ice rose from its slumber, sending tendrils of light and sound into the atmosphere. IT was not destruction it sought, but rebirth. The alien architects had planted a seed, one that could grow only when the old world's cycles ended. Eli raised his voice, now a chorus of thousands, calling out to the frozen lands and the skies above. The time has come. The seed awakens. We are the memory of ice and stars. We are the future. They asked. The first rays of the Alaskan sun pierced the horizon. The ice cracked open wide. Life surged forth, alien and earthly, intertwined. The townspeople watched in awe and terror as the world began to change. Eli smiled, a sad, knowing smile. He had become the bridge, the herald, the custodian of a new era. The aliens had never invaded. They had waited patiently for the day when Earth itself would call them home. The end or a new beginning. If this story sent chills down your spine and made you question what might be hiding beneath the ice, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. What do you think is really buried in Alaska's frozen depths? Drop your theories and thoughts in the comments below. I love reading every single one. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss out on more mysterious, spine-tingling stories. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the scariest truths are the ones right beneath our feet.